Mr. Chair. I guess I'd like to just pick up. I mean, this is a concern that this type of training occurred. And as mentioned, the groups that were highlighted were, from a range of different advocacy and ideological backgrounds here. I guess I wanted to just ask, was there any assessed political motivation from the person who designed this training material?
Ranking Member Kim, the investigation determined that there was no political motivation by any person involved in the training.
Okay. Well, look, as I said, in the opening, I mean, this was something that did target groups that span the ideological spectrum. And I think that, what we can focus on right here is, what can we do to make sure we're safeguarded? I agree with the chairman that, the fact that this went on for so many years is alarming. And trying to figure out how we can get the feedback, how we can make sure that this doesn't happen in the going forward. So I guess I'd like to just ask, what safeguards are being implemented to prevent future errors of this nature?
Ranking Member Kim, per the directive that we issued to review the anti-terrorism training, we put a number of requirements in there, including a legal review, a review at the colonel and GS-15 level, and we emphasize alignment of training materials with the Army standard training packages provided by the proponent offices.
So there would be then review prior to material being utilized, because as we've kind of discussed at a different time, there's no ability for leadership of the Army at the very highest levels to review all the material that's happening all across, all the different units. So, is there then a protocol for that review ahead of time? Is there also going to be, screenings or sit-ins to be able to view and how the training is being utilized? Can you walk us through some of that?
So that's all correct. In a normal process, when it's properly executed, commanders at the appropriate level, advised by their staff, in many cases advised by their legal advisors, would review the training materials before they are presented and utilized in the training program. When that's an Army-wide training package, a training support package, that's done at the proponent level. When it's a locally developed training package, that's done by the respective commander with their staff.
Okay. And there was conversation that you raised in the opening about an Army-wide review. I guess I'd just like to have a sense of how far along is that, and has so far in that review, have any additional concerns been raised or found?
Ranking Member Kim, that review is ongoing now. It was initiated a couple of weeks ago. We have a suspense early next year. We wanted to make sure we had plenty of time for our reserve, our National Guard, and Army Reserve components to complete that review. I'm confident that in most cases that review is already completed, and thus far there's been no issues identified with any other training materials.
Okay, well, we'll make sure that this committee and the Armed Services Committee continues to follow up in the new year as that investigation concludes. I guess I just want to finish with just sort of a big picture question here that I'd love the two of you to address, but just how does Army balance the needs to address legitimate extremist threats within the ranks while protecting the rights of service members, particularly when it comes to political, religious, and charitable affiliations? Doctor, maybe we could start with you.
Thank you for that question, sir. So, as you know, the department updated its extremist policy in 2021. That extremist policy has been in existence in some form since really the early 70s, and so this has been in place for a very long time, and what the purpose of the 2021 update was to clarify what is prohibited activity under that policy. And so it tried to tighten up the definition of extremism, and then laid out 14 criteria for active participation in extremism. And so the point of that was to make it less confusing to folks about what that policy focuses on. We just released the Army policy that nests within that broader DoD policy. We released that in June. I will, emphasize that the DoD policy, which again is the overarching policy, the North Star for that policy is that, quote, "A service member's right of expression should be preserved to the maximum extent possible in accordance with the First Amendment and the constitutional and statutory provisions of Title 10 and 18 of U.S. Code, and consistent with good order and discipline and national security." So really, the line for those prohibitive activities are those 14 criteria that are laid out in the DoD policy and that the Army policy mirrors.
Thank you. I'll yield back.
Mr. Gates.
So General Matlock, after years of the Army wrongly telling over 10,000